You see them? You see them? You see the things that float and flop about you and through you every moment of your life. You see the creatures that form what men call the pure air and the blue sky. Have I not succeeded in breaking down the barrier? Have I not shown you worlds that no other living men have seen? I heard him scream through the horrible chaos, and looked at the wild face thrust so offensively close to mine. His eyes were pits of flame, and they glared at me with what I now saw was overwhelming hatred. The machine droned detestably. You think those floundering things wiped out the servants? Fool, they are harmless. But the servants are gone, aren't they? You tried to stop me. You discouraged me when I needed every drop of encouragement I could get. You were afraid of the cosmic truth. You damned coward. But now I've got you. What swept up the servants? What made them scream so loud? Don't know, eh? You'll know soon enough. Look at me. Listen to what I say. Do you suppose there really are any such things as time and magnitude? Do you fancy there are such things as form or matter? I tell you, I have struck depths that your little brain can't picture. I have seen beyond the bounds of infinity and drawn down demons from the stars. I have harnessed the shadows that stride from world to sow death and madness. Space belongs to me, do you hear? Things are hunting me now. The things that devour and dissolve. But I know how to elude them. It is you they will get, as they got the servants. Stirring, dear sir? I told you it was dangerous to move. I have saved you so far by telling you to keep still. Saved you to see more sights and to listen to me. If you had moved, they would have been at you long ago. Don't worry, they won't hurt you. They didn't hurt the servants. It was seeing that made the poor devils scream so. My pets are not pretty, for they come out of places where aesthetic standards are very different. Disintegration is quite painless, I assure you, but I want you to see them. I almost saw them, but I knew how to stop. You are not curious? I always knew you were no scientist. Trembling, eh? Trembling with anxiety to see the ultimate beings I have discovered? Why don't you move then? Tired? Well, don't worry, my friend, for they are coming. Look! Look! Curse you! Look! It's just over your left shoulder. That was the slightly deranged Crawford Tillinghast, the slightly deranged character from Beyond. Yes, From Beyond. Today's Mythos Monday for today. A story I chose because I only have about 15 minutes to make this video. And this is a short little story about the slightly insane Crawford Tillinghast, a mad scientist, obviously, a pretty much standard mad scientist, maybe a little madder than usual, but Crawford Tillinghast has developed a machine, and when he turns on this machine, it can open your mind to the creatures that float and flop about in another dimension that is right on top of our own, coexisting with our own. And in this dimension, there are all kinds of horribly ghastly, monstrous creatures just floating around us all the time, but we are not aware of them, and they are, fortunately, not aware of us until You know, some mad nut like Tillinghast invents a machine, turns it on, and then we're all aware of each other, which causes horrible awfulness. I will read you what Lovecraft scholar S.T. Joshi has to say about this story, From Beyond. Written on November 16th, 1920, this story is more interesting for its conceptions, especially the notion of monsters that exist beyond the perception of our senses, than for its execution. It appears to have been inspired by various passages in a rather dry philosophical treatise, Hugh Elliott's Modern Science and Materialism, 1919, that Lovecraft read at this time. But the tale is weakened by its flamboyant protagonist, Crawford Tillinghast, a name that reflects two old families in Providence, and by confusion in the particulars of its supernatural manifestations. It first appeared in the Fantasy Fan, June 1934. So yeah, Tillinghast, who's been trying to make this machine for a while, invited his old friend over. His old friend who tried to talk Tillinghast out of doing this, because it was clear that Tillinghast was going nuts. So the friend's like, he gets a call from Tillinghast, he goes over there, and he sees Tillinghast is just a mess. And he says, come on in, come in. And then he gets him in there, turns on the machine, and he wants this guy to be the victim of these horrible creatures that can come in from another dimension and, you know, can kill you just by you looking at them. So this is a very, very pulpy story. It is one of the pulpiest of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. S.T. Joshi is pretty much on the mark with saying that the ideas in this story are a lot better than the execution of the story itself. It's an entertaining little story. It's a fun little pulp story. The thing is, and this was pretty early in Lovecraft's career, this is 1920. At the time, he was reading a ton of pulpy type stuff. So this is Lovecraft at his most pulpy, his most flamboyant, you know, in his writing style. He's almost as flamboyant as Tillinghast himself. So if Lovecraft had written this 10 years later, or taken the idea and written a story with the ideas in this story 10 years later, it probably would have been a masterpiece. This is not that. This is just an early pulp story by Lovecraft, a short little story. But the ideas in it are really interesting. The idea that there is this other dimension with these horrible creatures that exist in this other dimension. And if you can find a way to open your mind to this other dimension so that you can see the things that exist there, and unfortunately somehow they can see you too, is kind of a good idea and has been used since to better effect, I think. I especially like the idea that some of these things are so horrifying that if you see them, you just disintegrate. That's kind of cool. And you'll see that is a very Lovecrafty kind of idea. And he uses that kind of idea to greater effect later on in his Cthulhu mythos stories. A lot of which, actually just about all of which I've already talked about. But as an early little story, it's pretty cool. They made a movie in 1986, From Beyond. It was kind of the follow-up to Reanimator. It was directed by Stuart Gordon, with some of the cast members who were in Reanimator. And it wasn't as good as Reanimator, but it was kind of a fun, cheesy 80s horror movie, just as this is a fun, cheesy 1920s pulp story. So it's a lot of fun, From Beyond. Not his greatest work, but I do enjoy the ideas in it. And yeah, From Beyond, you should probably read it at some point if you're really, really into Lovecraft. Of course, if you're really into Lovecraft, you'll read all of these things. But it's good. It's not great, but it is a lot of fun for the kind of pulp story that it is. The mad scientist is just such a mad scientist. Poor Tillinghast. So yeah, that was your quick little Mythos Monday for today. Next week, I hope to have more time to record my Mythos Monday. but we'll see. And I hope to get up a tag for tomorrow. There is a tag I want to do. And then later on this week, I'm going to be doing a video on some independent books that I've read lately, including Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. Yeah, that one. I'll be talking about that one later on this week. And then if someone wants, I can pass the curse on to somebody else. I'm not sure it's a curse you'll want, but I'll pass it on. So, okay, guys, I will catch you next time here at Stately Vaughan Manor. Bye, guys.